Back in England, I suppose. The first car I had was a three-wheeler, a BSA three-wheeler, with a Blackburn air-cooled engine. And when you started it, it looked as if it was trying to bite you. A very vicious looking thing. Anyway, somebody wanted it, so I sold it and bought a four-cylinder water-cooled one. Because in England you could drive a three-wheeler before you were 17, you see. In 1967, if you take an interest and belong to a car club, then you hear of all sorts of things. You see advertisements in the paper and things like that. There's not the interest now that there was. Back in the 70s, practically everybody had a bit of amel car in their shed here. And you could set out on a Saturday morning and go and buy something. They're mostly gone. The good ones have all gone, just about. Oh, my mother said you shouldn't have favourites. The most valuable probably is a DeLage, and type GLS from 1924. It's the only one there is. It's very expensive to have other people work on things, isn't it? Particularly if they're a bit out of the ordinary. You certainly, you've got to be a millionaire if you've got to restore things like this. They charge the earth. I've had the necessity for all these years to get on with it. Well, you've got to be able to do fitting and turning and use a milling machine to cut tapers and whatnot, flat surfaces. And I spent 8 years at the TAFE college here in evening classes before they kicked me out. Used to worry about it a lot and got Australian oak, or for the wheels on this one here, silver spruce. But now I think pine is just as good. It doesn't give you splinters when you're working with it, which is a huge advantage, and is just as good, and it's available. If it only lasts for 30 years instead of 50 years, well, good luck to the next person. After the First World War, when the aeroplanes were all wooden framed and things, in France there was a surplus of woodworkers, and one of the French coach builders cottoned on to this, and his name was Labadet, and he started making these skiff bodies, he called them, which were wooden planked like a boat. But it's very awkward to do because you've got a curved body and the planks are banana shaped, you see. So you've got to get them to fit nicely. You've got to get one in position and held firmly, and then you've got to fiddle about with the next one to make it banana shaped to fit.
What condition?
Goodness knows. I was friendly with a cabinet maker at the time, and he let me use his workshop and his machines, which helped a terrific lot. Because he had a huge belt sander, 10 feet in length, I suppose it would have been, and that was very handy for making these banana-shaped things. Yeah, yes, I've been out in it a lot. It's a very powerful car. We could take it out to Colin Grove for the hill climb and things like that. Used to. It's got a 6-litre, 6-cylinder engine, overhead cam. About 130, I suppose, brake horsepower. It's got huge gearbox-driven servo brakes, which are as good as a modern car. Mostly, of course, they didn't have front-wheel brakes at all. So when you wanted to stop, the first thing you did was to pull on the handbrake lever, and that started the back wheels thing to slow down. And then you changed gear, And then the foot brake operated on the back of the gearbox, and you used that sparingly, and then you steered round the obstacle. When you reassemble an engine, you make sure that everything has got never sees or grease and oil and things on it, and that way it stays loose. If you start the engine, all that is mostly lost, and if you leave them then for 6 months or something, they seize up solid, and you've got an awful job then to release them. Mostly the people that belong to clubs are interested in their own car and not much interested in anybody else's, in that they like to go out on day runs and things and have lunch and a bottle of Chardonnay or something and sit on the running boards. Veteran cars are from up until 1930. They're veterans, or in the English call them Edwardians as well as veterans. And then from the vintage ones run from 1920 or 1919 to 1930. And then there was a great controversy in the 70s and 80s and 90s about what was then called a post-vintage tourer. And the premier club in England nominated which cars they considered to be thoroughbreds. But now, of course, there's a big movement to have them up to 1960. Well, the Humber's a 28 horsepower Humber made in either 1910 or 1911, of which there is very, very little information. And the reason for that is, I think, because it would have been very expensive to sell, and therefore they sold very few of them, compared with their smaller cars, of the 11.9 and the 14 horse ones, which they sold in great quantity. And there's still plenty of those in existence. They were very well made. Well, I can't find another one because I very much like to get some sketches or drawings of the components, you see. Triumph TR2 would be a good one to buy because they were simple and very robustly made. Fairly crude, but that wouldn't worry you, I don't think, because they go well. They're easy to work on, and what else? I don't know. I've got 4 daughters, and they're busy organising to have an auction sale. In fact, they're getting me to write the catalogue, because I know what's been done to the cars, and I know their provenance as well. Museums are a bit of a dead loss, actually, because they just sit in there and rot. And time goes so quickly, you don't think about it, do you? I haven't got much to say, really.
So will we see you back here in 10 years' time, do you think?
Pardon?
Will we see you back here in 10 years' time, do you think?
Oh, I shouldn't think so. No, I'll be underground by then.
You never know. You're in pretty good
You
shape,
never
mate.
know.